We had a lot of energy also in group 2. I'd like to just kind of maybe to break it down into 3 categories, and then we'll go for it, developing each one. The first one was our wish list. I think we all just kind of got it out of our system and what we knew needed to happen. The second, then we began to narrow it down to what was practical and began to look at some of those things, how to practically implement it. And then the third thing we looked at was how do we get there? You know, let's just boil it right down to what step can we take immediately. So we'll look at a couple of those things. I think the first thing we looked at, we compared what works, what doesn't work, and why. And we did our homework. A few people did their homework and came up with some good ideas that would mirror what we thought would be practical for Compton. So we looked at a whole lot of things, a couple of parks, El Dorado Park. We looked at really everything from artesian wells to Art Deco along the path. A lot of things here. Let's see. We talked about connectivity, how we need to. Oh, and I'm sorry, and this is my very capable assistant, Reginald. Okay, and he's going to pull my chain when I get off track. Okay, but anyway, just fun things. We at one point we looked at phase 2 and started wishing about what we could do with phase 2, since it's not in stone, and maybe not just using it linear, just having buildings there or retail stores, but beginning to see how we can shape that into a multi-use facility. And we talked about office buildings. We talked about maybe using it and creating an amphitheater kind of idea in phase 2, that families could become engaged, and then now the community had another meeting location for public meetings and so forth. And everything, of course, centered around the idea of the waterway for the view. I even thought about having, some kind of residential over there. We talked about whether or not that was feasible, and why not, if that was practical. Then we went on to looking more and more at the practical aspect of it. We talked about how important it was to have the trails in the park, looking at even the height of the fences. I think we talked about having restrooms. Bus accessibility was important because individuals would not only be using the trails for aesthetic and recreation purposes, but because they needed to get back and forth to work and could use the trail for that. So we talked about the importance of having bus accessibility. We talked about, someone mentioned how it's not just to ride the bike for recreation, but some people ride their bikes to work. I mean, even the freeway aspect, the linking was going to be really important. Talked also about the importance of having the connection with the Blue Line, and having a bridge or some sort of access was extremely important. We did hear about how it is going to be tough. That will be a project to really link the paths, and it's been a number of years in the making, but we began to think out of the box, and we know it can happen no matter what. And then we'll go on to, we can go on to how do we get there. And a lot of things that we just heard have already been discussed, but we talked about how do we get there. And I'm going to back up just a little bit. This is important because we looked at Compton College as an important inroad, not only for people resource, individuals that would come if there was a bridge or good access to come across, but then also, we're talking about young families, that the college was going to be an important resource, even for ideas, and we don't want to forget about them. We talked about, I do want to remember this, the grocery store in that phase 2. And we decided that it wasn't a Ralph's or a traditional grocery store, wasn't necessarily the best. We're talking about now looking at the environment, conservation. So we thought about we could possibly put a Fresh and Easy store in there. And that would satisfy the need of, for us to have accessibility to the grocery store, but then also the developer knows we need to make money as well. So that was important. And then I'll go on to our last item, how do we get there? And I think this one generated the most excitement, especially when we found out that a couple years ago there was a Friends of Compton Creek that had been established, and how important that would be, the greatest importance to bring it back to the level of grassroots, to the people. The people in the community have to own it, or else it won't work. And so if we had a Friends of Compton Creek that was an active organization that would invite members of the community to sign up, to be a part. We talked about the 3C event maybe as a kickoff for that, but making sure that the community felt that they owned it, that it's not just one part making it happen, it's not just outsiders from the outside coming in to make it happen, but that now it becomes a community, it becomes like it's a functioning organism, and that was important. What else do I need to say? Okay. Anything else from our group that was significant that I jumped over?
We talked about it as, in terms of the phase 2, incorporating some coffee shops or places that could use like a small outdoor courtyard, and having that as an interface between the development in phase 2 and the river, and that could be if that was linked up to the blue line, linked up to the path, it could create a nice big node right there, an attraction.
Awesome, and see, of course, the traffic just from the college, really beginning to look at, okay, who is going to use the bike path? Is our goal just for it to be used by the kids that are in the community, or are we going to structure it so that all families of all shapes and sizes and sorts will use that path? And so it is important that we're creative and remember all aspects of the population as we're putting our dreams and our visions down. Anyone else in group 2?
We also talked about outdoor classrooms, and there was a question about if the outdoor classrooms should be standalone or should they be tied to schools. And we agreed that we would want to have standalone outdoor classrooms because we would want to promote non-traditional educators to utilize these classrooms, such as Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H, different block clubs. So we agreed that the educational type format should be an important part of it, trying to educate the community.
And one more aspect of how do we get there, the practical side of it, and looking at the vision that has in place and how they're looking to the future and how important it is that we kind of line up under where they're going. They're looking now to right into their vision, healthy environment. And we talked about how important it was. Now, we're a sub-community group, and the liaison between our city council and the people, how our now Friends of Compton Creek have to be visible at those city council meetings. How the practical end is that it's going to be the city council that will say yay or nay, 3 votes to make it happen. So no matter how great it is that an idea that we have, if we don't have the city council, with their blessing, then it's not going to fly. So we looked at that, and of course, bringing in our developer and the importance of our developer, meshing our vision with the vision of the developer. His job is to bring the money in, and our job is to make it beautiful. So we've got to live together, and we know it's doable. Thank you.